North America is a continent entirely within the Northern Hemisphere and almost all within the Western Hemisphere. It can also be considered a northern subcontinent of the Americas. It is bordered to the north by the Arctic Ocean, to the east by the Atlantic Ocean, to the west and south by the Pacific Ocean, and to the southeast by South America and the Caribbean Sea. North America covers an area of about 24,709,000 square kilometers, about 16.5% of the Earth's land area and about 4.8% of its total surface. North America is the third largest continent by area, following Asia and Africa, and the fourth by population after Asia, Africa, and Europe. In 2013, its population was estimated at nearly 565 million people in 23 independent states, or about 7.5% of the world's population. If nearby islands are included, North America was reached by its first human populations during the last glacial period, via crossing the Bering Land Bridge. The so-called Paleo-Indian period is taken to have lasted until about 10,000 years ago. The Classic stage spans roughly the 6th to 13th centuries. The Pre-Columbian era ended with the arrival of European settlers during the Age of Discovery and the early modern period. Present-day cultural and ethnic patterns reflect different kinds of interactions between European colonists, indigenous peoples, African slaves and their descendants. European influences are strongest in the northern parts of the continent, while indigenous and African influences are relatively stronger in the south. Because of the history of colonialism, most North Americans speak English, Spanish or French, and societies and states commonly reflect Western traditions. Name. The Americas are usually accepted as having been named after the Italian explorer Amerigo Vespucci by the German cartographers Martin Waldseemüller and Matthias Ringmann. Vespucci, who explored South America between 1497 and 1502, was the first European to suggest that the Americas were not the East Indies, but a different landmass previously unknown by Europeans. In 1507, Waldseemüller produced a world map, in which he placed the word America on the continent of South America, in the middle of what is today Brazil. He explained the rationale for the name in the accompanying book Cosmographia Introductia ab Americo Inventa, quasi Americiterum sive Americam. For Waldseemüller, no one should object to the naming of the land after its discoverer. He used the Latinized version of Vespucci's name, but in its feminine form, America, following the examples of Europa, Asia, and Africa. Later, other map makers extended the name America to the northern continent. In 1538, Gerard Mercator used America on his map of the world for all the Western Hemisphere. Some argue that the convention is to use the surname for naming discoveries except in the case of royalty, and so a derivation from Amerigo Vespucci could be problematic. Ricardo Palma proposed a derivation from the Americ Mountains of Central America. Vespucci was the first to discover South America and the Americ Mountains of Central America, which connected his discoveries to those of Christopher Columbus. Alfred E. Hudd proposed a theory in 1908 that the continents are named after a Welsh merchant named Richard America from Bristol, who is believed to have financed John Cabot's voyage of discovery from England to Newfoundland in 1497. A minutely explored belief that has been advanced is that America was named for a Spanish sailor bearing the ancient Visigothic name of Americ. Another is that the name is rooted in a Native American language. Extent. The term North America maintains various definitions in accordance with location and context. In Canadian English, North America may be used to refer to the United States and Canada together. Alternatively, usage sometimes includes Greenland and Mexico, as well as offshore islands. The UN Geoscheme for North America separates Mexico from the United States and Canada, placing it instead within its designated Central America region, while also treating the islands of the Caribbean separately from the U.S.-Canada definition. The UN's North America definition still includes the Canadian Arctic Archipelago and Greenland together with the U.S.-Canada continental definition, with both insular entities being tectonically on the North American plate. In Iran, and several Romance language cultures, the cognates of North America usually designate a subcontinent of the Americas comprising Canada, the United States, and Mexico, and often Greenland, St. Pierre et Miquelon, and Bermuda. North America has been historically referred to by other names. Spanish North America was often referred to as Northern America, and this was the first official name given to Mexico. Regions. Geographically, the North American continent has many regions and subregions. These include cultural, economic, and geographic regions. Economic regions included those formed by trade blocs, such as the North American Trade Agreement bloc and Central American Trade Agreement. Linguistically and culturally, the continent could be divided into Anglo-America and Latin America. Anglo-America includes most of Northern America, Belize, and Caribbean islands with English-speaking populations. The southern North American continent is composed of two regions. These are Central America and the Caribbean. The north of the continent maintains recognized regions as well. In contrast to the common definition of North America, that which encompasses the whole continent, the term North America is also used to refer to Canada, Mexico, the United States, and Greenland. The term Northern America refers to the northernmost countries and territories of North America, Canada, the United States, Greenland, Bermuda, and St. Pierre and Miquelon. Although rarely used, the term Middle America, not to be confused with the Midwestern United States, groups the regions of Central America, the Caribbean, and Mexico. The largest countries of the continent, Canada and the United States, also contain well-defined and recognized regions. In the case of Canada, these are the British Columbia coast, Canadian prairies, central Canada, Atlantic Canada, and northern Canada. These regions also contain many subregions. In the case of the United States, and in accordance with the U.S. Census Bureau definitions, these regions are New England, Mid-Atlantic, East-North Central States, West-North Central States, South Atlantic States, East-South Central States, West-South Central States, Mountain States, and Pacific States. Regions shared between both nations included the Great Lakes region. Megalopolizers have also formed between both nations in the case of the Pacific Northwest and the Great Lakes megaregion. Countries, territories, and dependencies. History. Geologic history. Laurentia is an ancient craton which forms the geologic core of North America. It formed between 1.5 to 1.0 billion years ago during the Proterozoic eon. The Canadian Shield is the largest exposure of this craton. From the late Paleozoic to early Mesozoic eras, North America was joined with the other modern-day continents as part of the supercontinent Pangaea, with Eurasia to its east. One of the results of the formation of Pangaea was the Appalachian Mountains, which formed some 480 million years ago, making it among the oldest mountain ranges in the world. When Pangaea began to rift around 200 million years ago, North America became part of Laurasia, before it separated from Eurasia as its own continent during the Mid-Cretaceous period. The Rockies and other western mountain ranges began forming around this time from a period of mountain building called the Laramide orogeny, between 80 and 55 million years ago. The formation of the Isthmus of Panama that connected the continent to South America arguably occurred approximately 12 to 15 million years ago, and the Great Lakes were carved by receding glaciers about 10,000 years ago. North America is the source of much of what humanity knows about geologic time periods. The geographic area that would later become the United States has been the source of more varieties of dinosaurs than any other modern country. According to paleontologist Peter Dodson, this is primarily due to stratigraphy, climate and geography, human resources, and history. Much of the Mesozoic era is represented by exposed outcrops in the many arid regions of the continent. The most significant late Jurassic dinosaur-bearing fossil deposit in North America is the Morrison Formation of the western United States. Pre-Columbian. The indigenous peoples of North America have many creation myths by which they assert that they have been present on the land since its creation. The specifics of Paleo-Indian migration to and throughout the Americas, including the exact dates and routes traveled, are subject to ongoing research and discussion. The traditional theory has been that these early migrants moved into the Bering land bridge between eastern Siberia and present-day Alaska around 25,000 to 11,000 years ago. The few agreements achieved to date of the origin from Central Asia, with widespread habitation of the Americas during the end of the last glacial period, or more specifically what is known as the late glacial maximum, around 13,000 years before present. Some genetic research indicated secondary waves of migration occurred after the initial Paleo-Indian colonization, but prior to modern Inuit, Inupiat and Yupik expansions. Before contact with Europeans, the natives of North America were divided into many different polities, from small bands of a few families to large empires. They lived in several culture areas, which roughly correspond to geographic and biological zones and give a good indication of the main lifeway or occupation of the people who lived there. Native groups can also be classified by their language family. Peoples with similar languages did not always share the same material culture, nor were they always allies. Anthropologists think that the Inuit people of the high Arctic came to North America much later than other native groups, as evidenced by the disappearance of Dorset culture or artifacts from the archaeological record, and their replacement by the Thule people. During the thousands of years of native habitation on the continent, cultures changed and shifted. One of the oldest cultures yet found is the Clovis culture of modern New Mexico. Later cultures include the Mississippian culture and related mound-building cultures, found in the Mississippi River Valley, and the Pueblo culture of what is now the Four Corners. The more southern cultural groups of North America were responsible for the domestication of many common crops now used around the world, such as tomatoes and squash. Perhaps most importantly, they domesticated one of the world's major staples, maize. The earliest verifiable instance of pre-Columbian transoceanic contact by any European culture with the land masses that geologically constitute the mainland of modern North America has been dated to the end of the 10th century CE. This site, situated at the northernmost extent of the island named Newfoundland, is known as Lanzo Meadows, where unmistakable evidence of Norse settlement was uncovered in the early 1960s. As a result of the development of agriculture in the South, many important cultural advances were made there. For example, the Maya civilization developed a writing system, built huge pyramids and temples, had a complex calendar, and developed the concept of zero around 400 CE, a few hundred years after the Mesopotamians. The Mayan culture was still present in southern Mexico and Guatemala when the Spanish explorers arrived, but political dominance in the area had shifted to the Aztec Empire, whose capital city Tenochtitlan was located further north in the Valley of Mexico. The Aztecs were conquered in 1521 by Hernán Cortés. Colonial period. During the Age of Discovery, Europeans explored and staked claims to various parts of North America. Upon their arrival in the New World, the Native American population declined substantially, because of violent conflicts with the invaders and the introduction of European diseases to which the Native Americans lacked immunity. Native culture changed drastically, and their affiliation with political and cultural groups also changed. Several linguistic groups died out, and others changed quite quickly. The names and cultures that Europeans recorded were not necessarily the same as the names they had used a few generations before, or the ones in use today. Britain, Spain, and France took over extensive territories in North America, and fought over them. In the late 18th century and beginning of the 19th, independence movements that sprung up across the continent led to the creation of the modern countries in the area. The 13 British colonies on the North Atlantic coast declared independence in 1776, becoming the United States of America. Canada was formed from the unification of northern territories controlled by Britain and France. New Spain, a territory that stretched from modern-day southern U.S. to Central America, declared independence in 1810, becoming the first Mexican empire. In 1823, the former Captaincy General of Guatemala, then part of the Mexican Empire, became the first independent state in Central America, officially changing its name to the United Provinces of Central America.